Hello and welcome to Chabot News for December 11, 2025. My name is Lala D, and today we will be covering the Education Department temporarily bringing back about 250 federal workers, high schoolers in Kansas helping build beds for charity, and another indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. In sports news, Enrique Pena has the latest updates on one of the biggest sports events of the year at Taylor University in Central Indiana. All of that and more coming up in today's edition of Chabot News. CNN has learned the Education Department will temporarily bring back about 250 federal workers placed on administrative leave last March. The department is bringing back the workers while the federal government fights efforts in the courts to cut jobs at the agency. An agency spokesperson said, while that court fight plays out, it will use all of its employees to get the agency's work done. That includes several workers in the department's Office for Civil Rights. They received an email last Friday instructing them to return to work. The email said the workers can help with the department's caseload of civil rights complaints. The Trump administration has previously vowed to dismantle the Department of Education. Being heart healthy is a year-round goal, but the American Heart Association says the research shows more people die from heart attacks at the end of December than at any other time of the year. And experts say you don't have to have a heart problem to be at risk. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither explains why and has more on how to stay heart healthy over the holidays.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, but for your heart, it's also the most dangerous as the number of heart attacks spike during the holidays.
Most people don't think about the fact that during the holidays, you can get in trouble even if you don't have any history of heart problems or medical problems at all by doing some of the things that you normally do during holidays.
Cardiologist Dr. Taiwan Tillman with Orlando Health calls it holiday heart syndrome, where there's a sudden onset of stress on the heart or abnormal heart rhythms due to choices that are made during the holidays.
Lots of good food, sometimes a little bit more alcohol than you would normally drink. And those are all things that can place emotional stress and physical stress on your body and ultimately your heart.
To lower risk of holiday heart syndrome, Tillman says that if you plan to drink alcohol, be mindful of how much you're drinking and pace yourself.
You want to make sure that as you're drinking, try and drink a non-alcoholic drink or a glass of water in between alcoholic beverages.
And be aware of what you're eating. Tillman says salty and rich foods in particular can stress the heart, so he says to limit those things. Also, if you're hosting a party, he says offer healthy choices and non-alcoholic drinks.
It's important. You want to enjoy yourself, but you really want to celebrate smart, and you want to be mindful that these things can occur, and a little bit of prevention goes a long way.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Thanks, Mandy. The American Heart Association says it's also important to know and recognize the warning signs of a heart attack, which includes pain or discomfort in the chest, lightheadedness, nausea or vomiting, jaw, neck, or back pain, discomfort or pain in the arm or shoulder, and shortness of breath. If you experience any of these signs, get immediate medical help. A group of high schoolers in Kansas was out helping to build beds for charity this past weekend. Jordan Tovar checked out the work those students are doing and spoke to them about the holiday spirit they are spreading.
High school students from around Wichita teaming up to drill, sand, and brand wood as part of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. While some of the kids I spoke with said that building the beds was educational, they were really in it to help their community.
I've known some people that they had to sleep on the floors before, and I just really wanted to help those kids out this holiday season.
Because I feel like it's going to help out a lot, and I just feel proud of myself that I'm going to be helping out kids.
Once the beds are finished, they're packed up and are distributed to families in the area. Some of the kids not only build but also help to deliver them.
I also do the deliveries of the beds, and getting to see the conditions they live in and knowing that it's not entirely their fault, that just hurts my heart. So I want to do anything that I can to help them.
Richard Noy with Sleep in Heavenly Peace is happy to see that kids still want to help out.
It means everything. It tells me that the kids today are just as interested in helping out as their parents and grandparents are.
Beyond the community service work, this taught these kids skills that they can use for life.
I found it like very educational on like how to learn how to use a sanding tool and like how to stain and stuff, and I found it like very helpful, and I can use the skills in the future.
Thank you for that report, Jordan. Turns out these students aren't just making beds, they're making a difference. Let's move on to sports with Enrique Pena.
Thanks, Lala D. In sports news, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier has pleaded not guilty to federal charges alleging he was involved in an illegal gambling operation. Rozier appeared in a New York courtroom on Monday. A judge released him on $3 million bond. Rozier and a co-defendant in the case are accused of using inside information to tip off gamblers during a 2023 game when he was still a member of the Charlotte Hornets. The NBA placed Rozier on unpaid leave in October. It's one of the biggest sports events of the year at Taylor University in central Indiana. The annual Silent Night game took place last Friday. A big crowd was on hand for the basketball game. Students traditionally wear costumes and keep silent until the team scores 10 points. Well, the Trojans certainly scored more than that, a lot more. They went on to beat Moody Bible 118-33. At the end of the game, the students joined together to sing Silent Night. That's all for today's sports news. Back to you, Lala D.
Thanks, Enrique. Ukrainian peace talks have wrapped up in Miami without a clear breakthrough on ending the war with Russia. After 3 days of talks between U.S. and Ukrainian officials, there are still lingering questions over security guarantees and territorial issues. Meanwhile, in Moscow, the Kremlin says it welcomes a revised U.S. security strategy document, which reportedly stops calling Russia a threat. CNN's Paula Hancock has more.
We heard from the Ukrainian ambassador to the US saying that difficult issues remain. This is after the 3 days of those negotiations in Miami wrapped up, saying that the key points are territory and guarantees. Ukraine wants strong, rigid security guarantees that they are not going to have to surrender further territory to Russia in the future. There's not going to be further issues when it comes to Russia. And it's understandable that they would say that, given that just in the past couple of days, we've heard from the Russian President Vladimir Putin telling reporters in India that he intends to seize the eastern Donbass region by any means. So these are really the key obstacles, the long-standing hurdles to secure this peace effort. We have been hearing from both the US and Ukrainian sides, though, really every day during these negotiations that they were constructive negotiations. We also heard a statement from the two US mediators, that's the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, saying that both the US and Ukraine agreed that real progress depends on Russia's readiness to show serious commitment. So potentially there an acknowledgement, certainly from the US side, that Russia has not budged from its maximalist demands, that there hasn't been this suggestion that there would be any compromise, certainly from President Putin at this point. We did hear, though, some more promising words from the US ambassador to NATO, for example, saying that he believes that we are closer to peace than we have been at any time before. But these negotiations will continue. We know that President Zelensky of Ukraine spoke with Kushner and with Steve Witkoff after these talks ended to really get a summary of where progress was made, if any was made. He called those talks constructive, again, a word that is being used repeatedly by both sides. So if we're looking to what will happen over the next couple of days, we know in London on Monday that President Zelensky will be meeting with the leaders of the UK, of Germany and of France.
Thank you for that report, Paula. As negotiations move from Miami to London, officials say progress is possible, but only if Moscow signals it's ready to compromise. A national security strategy was released by the White House on Friday. It lays out the top priorities concerning the U.S., both domestically and abroad. The 33-page document discusses shifting military resources towards priorities like stopping drug trafficking. while other parts of it take a more confrontational approach with European allies. CNN's Melissa Bell has the latest on Europe's reaction to Trump's agenda.
Well, curiously, given the document's contents, which really are surprising in how directly they attack European allies, talking about the danger that European civilization, if the current trajectory continues, could disappear entirely, and calling for resistance on the European continent. Really quite stark words that have met with a relatively muted response here in Europe. I think there's a reluctance really to provoke the anger of Washington. But what is interesting here is, first of all, that the contents of this document very much reflect what J.D. Vance had come and told Europeans face-to-face. You'll remember at the Munich Security Conference back at the start of the second President Trump term, warning them rather, that the far-right parties were being silenced, that the real danger facing Europe were things like migration and the fact that they was not listening closely enough to the popular support of those far-right governments. So this policy paper that very much follows that in a much more official way. And by the way, the other interesting thing here is that the last time Washington published such a policy paper was back under the Biden administration, and you couldn't have a different approach to Europe at the time. The explicit goal of the document had been to deepen our alliance with Europe. So that's how far things have come.
Thank you for that informative report, Melissa. As Europe weighs in its words carefully, the White House's strategy signals a dramatic shift, one that could redefine America's closest alliances. The political spotlight is shifting to President Trump's own approach, branded by critics and commentators as Trumpcare. His policies on affordability and prescription drugs are drawing mixed reviews. The Senate is expected to vote as soon as this week on whether to extend expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies. If Congress does not act, millions will be faced with a choice: higher premiums or simply going without coverage. Meanwhile, Trump is expected to hold an event in Pennsylvania about making prices more affordable. Trump has taken some steps to lower prices for certain prescription drugs, but his wider policies may have an opposite effect. A CNN and SSRS poll last month found that 61% of Americans said Trump's policies have worsened economic conditions in this country. There is currently no plan to address GOP qualms while extending subsidies without major reforms to Obamacare. Big moves in Texas politics this week. Representative Jasmine Crockett has officially entered the Senate race, filing paperwork and making her presence felt with a bold new message. Her timing comes as the state's political map shifts and rivals adjust their plans. Tonight, we take you straight to the video that's already stirring headlines. Let's watch. As the campaign trail heats up, the policy debate is just as intense, especially on health care. A federal judge has thrown a wrench into the Justice Department's plans to seek another indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. On Saturday, Judge Colleen Cotelli temporarily blocked the department from using crucial evidence in its efforts to bring new charges against Mr. Comey. The case against Comey was previously dismissed after a judge found that President Trump's appointment of an interim U.S. attorney was invalid. Comey had pleaded not guilty to charges that said he lied to Congress 5 years ago. The DOJ has hinted that they are considering returning to a grand jury as early as next week to seek a new indictment for Mr. Comey. But the latest ruling could give pause to the decision. The department has been given until Monday at noon to certify they will follow her order, and they have till Tuesday to file their opposition. The federal government is recalling a popular children's toy, the Consumer Product Safety Commission announced last week. The recall of Create on Crayola branded Pip cubes. The cubes contain magnets that can become loose, that could cause harm to children if they swallow them. The magnetic building cubes were sold in sets of 27 cubes. The 24-piece sets were sold at Michael's stores around the country and through Michael's website. The 27-piece sets were sold online at Amazon. So far, there are no reports of any injuries. However, people who have the magnet set should either toss it or return the item to the store for a refund. That's all for Chabot News this week. Thanks to all the students, staff, and mass communications department here at Chabot College for making this production possible. You can watch us anytime online at youtube.com/ChabotTV. Stay tuned to KCTH Channel 27 on Comcast for more Chabot TV.